Hey everybody, it's Damien from Guitar Journey here, and today we're going to work on learning our fretboard, but we're going to do it in a way that develops another really cool skill along the way. Now, if you follow this channel, you might remember that a while ago I posted a video on what I think is really the most direct, the most usable path to learning your neck. I'm going to post the link to that video in the description below, but in a nutshell, I really believe some people have a little bit of a backwards approach to learning the neck. And what I mean by that is most people try to just memorize the neck, or they try to learn some big overarching system that's supposed to just unlock the fretboard for them. And then people feel that after they do all this, then they will be able to do certain things like soloing all over the neck or finding different chord shapes all over the neck, you know, that kind of thing. I actually believe this is a little bit of a backwards approach. I think one of the most useful and, like I like to say, usable things you can do is identify the skills that you hope that learning the neck will actually give you, and then you work on those specific skills, and that is actually how you really learn the neck. By doing it this way, you have a much greater chance of retaining the knowledge that you're getting because you're actually using it. And of course, while you're also learning the fretboard, you're also developing other skills that you'll use in your playing and that you've identified as being skills that you really want to work on and you want to learn. So it's just a much more efficient way to learn. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to use the concept of double stops as a way of learning our neck. Now, without meaning to get too bogged down in definitions or anything like that, double stops are just basically hitting two notes at the same time in some sort of a melodic way. You can use them as rhythmic embellishments, or you can make melodies with them as part of a solo. I like also to use them as a way of bridging one scale fingering to another. So, for example, if I'm going to play a B minor 7 chord right here, and I'm going to be going to an E minor 7 chord right here, I might do a little bit of a double stop passage in between those chords. I hit the B minor 7 chord, and then I used a little bit of a double stop passage to bring me more smoothly to my E minor 7 chord. It's simple. It's not incredibly flashy, but it tends to be, you know, kind of a nice addition. It adds a little bit of motion to our rhythm playing, okay? Or another possibility, double stops, as I said, can help us move from one scale fingering to another. Let's say I'm soloing and I'm in this B minor fingering here, and I'm soloing. And I used a double stop passage to bring me from this fingering where the root note is right here on the 5th string, 2nd fret, to the fingering where the root note is right here, 7th fret, 6th string. Okay, the double stops helped me go from one fingering in my scale, one scale fingering to another, and that was pretty nice. Okay. The double stops that I just demonstrated are what we call parallel thirds. And again, let's not get off track. Let's not get bogged down with definitions. All we really mean is parallel thirds. The notes that I'm playing are moving in the same direction. That's what the word parallel means. They're all going up together. They're all going down together. And the notes happen to be the interval of a third apart. And sometimes it's a minor third. Sometimes it's a major third. But again, we're just not really that concerned right now. Please trust me when I tell you it's actually not that important right now, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute or two, but again, not a big deal, okay? Now, in addition to parallel thirds, you can also play what are called parallel sixths, and those sound really nice too. Without getting into the theory, again, not that important, but basically you take a third, you flip it upside down, and you end up with a sixth, okay? I love playing double stops as sixths. So, for example, once again, my B minor chord, I'm just going to do a B minor triad here, so that's the notes of my B minor triad are B, D, and F sharp. So I play the B minor triad, and I can kind of outline the notes of the triad, D and B, F sharp and D. So I outlined the notes of the triad. That sounds really nice as well. Okay? I can do some melodic passages ascending or descending using either parallel thirds or parallel six. Here's parallel six. I can do something like or parallel thirds. Maybe I go something like that. I descended, then I ascended, okay? So as you can see, double stops can sound really, really nice. They add a certain sweetness, a certain elegance to our playing. And they do have a lot of different uses, both rhythmic and melodic. I definitely encourage you to work them into your playing. And today, we're going to use double stops to help us learn the neck. Now, just a quick word, in terms of prerequisites for this path that we're going to take today, you definitely need to know your chromatic scale, okay? That's pretty much non-negotiable for any deeper learning on guitar. You have to learn your chromatic scale and be super comfortable with it. I do have a video on the chromatic scale all ready for you. I'm going to put that link in the description below. It also would be helpful, although it's not really required, to know how to construct a major scale. Now, I have a video on that as well, and I'm going to put that in the description below as well. But really, that's nice. It's not 100% required. Chromatic scale is non-negotiable. You have to have that, okay? As far as being able to construct a major scale, as I said, that's nice, but as long as you can just look it up or something, look at the circle of fifths and find out the notes in a major key, some other source of information online, you know, that's fine. That's all you really need to be able to do, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to play double stops across strings 1, 2, 3, and 4, both thirds and sixths, okay? Now, off to the side, you might be wondering, strings 1, 2, 3, 4, what about strings 5 and 6? Well, there are actually two answers to this question. One, to be honest, I'm not really that crazy about playing double stops on strings 5 and 6. I'm not saying never to do them, but for me personally, they just tend to sound a bit muddy. Maybe I'm doing something like they're fine, you know, again, they're fine, but not my favorite thing in the world. But remember, the bigger point is we're using double stops to learn our fretboard, and I really think the best way to learn strings 5 and 6, and I said this in my other video on learning the neck, is that you should play your scales and play as many songs that use bar chords as possible. Remember, your bar chords are going to be rooted on the 5th and the 6th string, and so are your scale positions, whether it's pentatonic, diatonic, whatever. And of course, a root note for a scale is also a root note for a chord and vice versa. So in terms of really practical way to learn strings 5 and 6, I actually think, you know, playing a whole bunch of bar chord based songs and moving your scales around in a variety of keys is actually the best approach, okay? Again, that I expand on that idea more in the video on learning the neck. Link is in the description. But anyways, so now back on track. Double stops on strings 1 through 4. Now today, for ease of learning, I'm going to give you all my demonstrations in the key of C major. Okay, C major. C major is just a really easy key. The notes in C major are C, D, E, F, G, A, B. None of the notes are sharped. None of the notes are flatted. Just C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And what we're going to do is as follows. We're going to learn parallel third double stops on strings 1 and 2, strings 2 and 3, and strings 3 and 4. And then by contrast, we're going to learn parallel sixth double stops on strings 1 and 3 and strings 2 and 4. Now, a quick note about how I actually play these double stops, physically speaking. In terms of my left hand, I like to put my left hand middle finger on the lower note of whatever double stop I'm doing, okay? And that's because when I'm playing parallel thirds, for example, on the first and second string, the notes are going to be either 1 fret apart or 2 frets apart, okay? And so if I keep my middle finger on the lower of the 2 strings, in this case the second string, my index finger can actually make the adjustment. Now, on the other hand, if I'm playing on parallel thirds on strings 2 and 3, I'm still going to keep my middle finger on the lower note because the notes are either going to be at the same fret or they're going to be 1 fret apart, So as long as I use my middle finger on the lower string, which in this case is the third string, either my ring finger or my index finger can cover the second string note. Okay? Same holds true, by the way, for parallel 6, whether on the first and third string. Again, my middle finger is going to be on the lower note, or where on the second and fourth string, my middle finger is going to be on the lower note. One of the nice side effects of this, or attributes of this, is that I can maintain contact with the string when I do this. And so I get this nice little, I'm in C major, and I get this nice little kind of sliding sound as I do that. And that's kind of a nice effect to be able to add in if you want to do so. You don't have to do it that way, but you can, and it's pretty nice. In terms of what my right hand does, I hold my pick, thumb, and index finger, and I actually pluck the notes with my middle and my ring, or sometimes I'll pick the lower note and get the higher note with my middle finger. You can strike the notes with a pick, like that, but if you're going to do parallel 6 on non-adjacent strings, like strings 1 and 3, you're going to have to find a way to mute that second string, that in-between string. So if you're going to actually flat pick them. So bear in mind, okay? So now, double stops on strings 1 and 2, parallel thirds. Parallel thirds on strings 1 and 2. I'm starting with a C note on the second string, first fret, and I'm going to work my way up. I'm combining it with an E note, the first string open. I'm going to work my way up. And I could keep going further from there if I want to, as high as I want to go. Couple of important points while you do this. You really want to have your mind involved in this as much as possible. Bear in mind, we're using this as a tool to learn the neck. So what I really encourage you to do, and I know this may sound a bit weird, what I really encourage you to do is say the notes out loud as you play them. For example, as I play the notes, working my way up the neck, I say the lower note and then the higher note. So I'll say something like C and E, D and F, E and G, F and A, G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E. And I've made it up an octave, okay? Now, if I'm playing electric guitar, like I mentioned earlier, if I'm playing electric guitar as opposed to acoustic, I've got many more frets that I have access to. You might want to go, well, as high up the neck as you want to go. That's up to you, okay? But at least try to do one full octave. But I really want to emphasize, it's incredibly important to identify the notes that you're playing. Saying the names of the notes out loud will help you to remember exactly what you're doing, okay? One more tip, and this one's going to sound strange as well. Here's a situation where you actually kind of don't want to use your ear. We're trying to learn the neck, and that's a cognitive thing. It's an analytical, knowledge-based awareness we're going for. So in this case, we don't really want to, I don't want to say don't use your ear, but don't rely on your ear to get your fingers into the right place. You'll see players do this sometimes. They'll be going up the neck and they'll make a mistake, and because they have a good ear, they'll fix that mistake. It'll look kind of like this. I've seen this a million times. So we're working our way up. Oh, that didn't sound right. Oh yeah, that's it. And then they finish it out. Well, did they really stop and identify the note that they played that they didn't want? Or did they just use their ear to get themselves back on track? Don't rely on your ear to get you back on track. Think your way through it. Oh, geez, I just played a B flat. That's not correct. We're in C major. You know, that kind of thing, okay? It's like if you're driving to a certain city and you've never been there before and you take a bunch of wrong turns and eventually find your way there, you didn't really learn how to get there, did you? Okay? We want to have an actual intellectual knowledge of what we're doing. It's not enough just to end up with our fingers in the right place. We need to know exactly what we're doing. So say the notes out loud and really make sure that you know exactly what notes you're playing at all times. Try not to rely on your ear too much. Anyways, so I just demonstrated parallel thirds on strings 1 and 2. How about parallel thirds on strings 2 and 3? Well, we're still in C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And I'm going to start with the lowest notes I can find, which actually are the two open strings, G and B. And similar how I did first and second string, I'm going to say the notes as I go up. So I got G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E, D and F, E and G, F and A, G and B, A and C, and I can keep going, B and D, C and D, and that's a nice place to stop there. Okay, that's strings 2 and 3. We might as well finish up our parallel thirds by playing them on strings 3 and 4. I'm going to start with an E note on the 4th string, 2nd fret, and I'm going to play the open 3rd string, which is G, and I'm going to say the notes out loud. So we've got E and G, F and A, G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E, D and F, E and G, F and A, G and B, A and C, and that's a good place to stop. Okay, again, we want to do at least just one octave. Okay, so there are my parallel thirds on strings 3 and 4, and that rounds out my practice of parallel thirds in the key of C major. Again, we do strings 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. So now it's time, a quick aside before we get into parallel 6, okay? Once you get super comfortable going up the neck, well, of course, go down the neck. Vary the order, okay? And eventually, when you're really ready and when you're really feeling confident, put on a jam track and improvise up and down the neck using your parallel thirds, okay? Just before you do that, try not to jump ahead. You really want to get a firm foundation just by saying the notes out loud as you work your way up the neck. All right, let's look at parallel 6. They're going to be on strings 1 and 3 and strings 2 and 4. Okay, we're still in C major. I'm going to start with the two open strings, G and E, since we do find those notes in the key of C major, okay? And I'm going to say the notes out loud. So now we've got G and D, A and F, B and G, C and A, D and B, E and C, F and D, G and E, A and F, B and G, and one more, C and A. That's a nice place to stop. I did an octave and a little more. And finally, parallel thirds on strings 4 and 2. Staying in C major, I'm going to start with the open 4th string, which of course is D, and the open 2nd string, which is a B note. Then I'm going to say the notes out loud as I work my way up. From there, we have E and C, F and D, G and E, A and F, B and G, C and A, D and B, E and C. And I could keep going, F and D, G and E, and so forth as far as I want to go, okay? And those are my most commonly played double stops in the key of C major. And like I said a moment ago, once you get super comfortable working your way up, well, go back down. And then once you're super comfortable with that, put on a jam track, improvise using your double stops, okay? What you also want to do, of course, also is change keys. And what I really recommend is that you start in C major, as we did. And C major is in like the 12 o'clock position on the circle of fifths, right? And what you want to do is work gradually down the circle of fifths, both the, so to speak, the right side and the left side of the circle of fifths. So for example, after getting really comfortable in C major, the next key that I'm going to work in is going to be G major, and the notes in G major are G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. F sharp. Maybe you're noticing that the only difference between the key of C major and G major is that in C major we have an F natural, whereas in G major we do have an F sharp. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. So parallel thirds, I'm going to do strings 1, 2 in the key of C major. I'm going to start at the same point, the C note and the E note. But right away I have to acknowledge there's an F sharp right here on the 2nd fret of the first string. Then I continue from there. E and so that was D and F sharp. We've got E and G. Here's another F sharp, 7th fret of the 2nd string, F sharp and A. G and B, A and C, B and D, C and E, D and, hey, here's another F sharp, 14th fret of the first string, E and G, and I can keep going, F sharp and A, and a little bit of a tight squeeze, but G and B. Okay. And of course, I would go through all of my string combinations, parallel thirds, parallel sixths, as I did earlier in the key of C major. I'm going to be doing them in G major as well. Well, you know what I'm about to say. After I feel super comfortable working up the neck in the key of G major, I work my way back down the neck. I put on a jam track in G major, and I improvise using my double stops in G major, just like I did in C. As always, we are trying to build functional skills and functional knowledge, knowledge you can apply, okay? All right, so once I get comfortable with G major, I'm not just going to continue down the right side of the circle of fifths. That would bring me to D major, and you can certainly do that if you like. But me personally, I like to give the left side of the circle of fifths some attention as well. So after I practice C major, then G major, I like to go to the left side and do F major, which is sort of in the 11 o'clock position, you might say, on the circle of fifths. And you may know that the notes in the key of F major are F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and E. So the only difference between C major and F major is that in C major we do have a B natural, whereas in F major we have that 1 flat, B flat. Okay? Kind of interesting. Instead of 1 sharp in G major, we've got 1 flat in F major. Okay? And just for variety's sake, I'm going to play some parallel sixths up the neck in F major, this time on the 2nd and 4th strings, and something interesting happens here. You may remember that when I was in C major, when I demonstrated parallel sixths on the 2nd and 4th strings, I began with the open 4th string, which again is a D note, and on the open 2nd string, excuse me, which is a B note, a B natural. But we're in F major now. I can't start with those notes because, remember, in F major, our B note is flatted. So no big deal. I'm just going to start with the 4th string 2nd fret, which happens to be an E note, and the 2nd string 1st fret C note. And I'm going to work my way up from there. And of course, I have to be looking for the B flat notes as I work my way up. I've got E and C, F and D, G and E, A and F, and if I'm hitting an A note, 7th fret 4th string, I know a B flat note is right next door. B flat and G, C and A. Hey, there's that A again, so I've got to be ready. D and B flat, E and C. I've gone an octave, but I'll continue a bit more. F and D, G and E, tight squeeze, A and F. And there we are. And you know, there from F major, we do everything that I've discussed earlier. Once we're super comfortable, we go on back to the right side of the circle of fifths, D major. D major is now going to have 2 sharps, C sharp and F sharp, and then after I go through that and I'm super comfortable with D major, maybe I go to the left side of the circle of fifths, B flat major, which will have 2 flats, B flat and E flat, and I'm kind of going right, left, down the circle of fifths. Very, very efficient. Super important to work both sharped and flatted notes, okay? We guitar players tend not to be comfortable with flat keys, but they're very important. And if you practice this way, saying the notes out loud, not relying on your ear too much, changing keys, using both sharp and flat keys, sharp and flat notes, getting comfortable, then working your way back down, then improvising over a jam track. If you do all this way, I promise your knowledge of the fretboard will skyrocket. And in addition to learning the neck, you'll also be accomplishing two other things. You'll be adding the ability to skillfully use double stops, both rhythmically and melodically, to your toolkit, and you'll also be doing yourself a huge favor in your understanding of music theory, because again, you'll be working through different keys, both sharp notes and flatted notes, sharp keys and flat keys. You know, in my view, the best kinds of practices, the best kinds of exercises are those that have you practicing a real skill that you'll actually use in your playing, and that work on more than one attribute at the same time. And this method of practicing double stops, of learning your fretboard this way, definitely fits that description. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I know it's been a long lesson, but I hope you find this useful. And as always, please hit the subscribe button, okay? As I like to say, we really are building a community, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. And also, please leave a comment. I honestly believe that we can all learn from each other. And even if we happen to disagree on something, that's totally fine. An open, lively discussion enriches all of our respective guitar journeys. So hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.